Over the next few decades, the metaverse will become immensely more advanced and integrated in our daily lives. Some people think the metaverse is just a hype. Others believe it to be the greatest evolution of the internet. Together with the sharpest minds in this space, we are going to explore the future of the metaverse. We want to understand the impacts of this new world, and in this show, we will find the answers. Welcome to Metaverse Mentors.
Welcome at Metaverse Mentors, everyone. This is your host, Sami Badawi, and today I'm sitting down with the founders of Metasouls and SheNFT. And for the ones who do not know what Metasouls and SheNFT is, they are a community focused on women in tech with an accent on Web3. And people and organizations that are in it are ranging from founders, creators, from marketing background, brands, but also just people who are interested in Web3. And they're really pushing the envelope in terms of themes like innovation, but also relevant themes like women in tech, which could be a podcast in and of itself, but hopefully diving into that as well today. So first of all, thank you, ladies, for joining Metaverse Mentors. Happy to have you.
Great.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so welcome. And yeah, I was really looking forward to this podcast. One, because of the great things you are doing, but secondly, because we are kind of from the same generation, and in a sense we have a similar path, being around the same age, I think, involved in technology space, but more specifically Web3 and NFTs. So everything is very new and there's a lot of movement going on in this landscape. So I'm also curious to hear what kind of similarities we are seeing in the market, or perhaps different perspectives. So that will be definitely interesting. And of course, you are focused on women in tech, which is a super relevant and interesting topic that has been discussed a lot in different podcasts and media outlets. So hoping to dive into that as well. But before that, can you perhaps kick off a bit with your background, your story, and how you got to know each other?
Sure, I can start. My name is Anastasia. I'm coming initially from Russia. And I'm a marketeer for already many years, like 10 years. I used to work with different corporations, mostly Adidas, Unilever. Mostly I was working for Heineken, first in Moscow, then in Amsterdam, on the brand marketing side. And when pandemic came, I decided to reconsider my aspirations, let's put it like this. And I think I had a lot of revelations, the same as many other people. So I decided to quit my company and to start building something myself. At that moment, I it was beginning of this year, by the way, started developing my digital marketing agency here in Amsterdam, which was and is quite exciting journey because I'm still having this project and developing it. At some point, I think it was March, we, like together with Sabina, we were going through online course related to, by the way, personal brands, right? As far as I remember. And part of this course was a networking platform. And we connected at that moment. I'm particularly grateful to myself that I decided to go through this course because we met and we started to discuss the opportunity to develop our own project, which is now here, which is Metasouls. Yeah, I think
just a follow-up question on the introduction. Thanks for that. Was this in 2020 when you met, or 2021?
2022. 2020.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Ah, really cool. Do you want to add something on that, Sabina, in terms of background? And perhaps you can also tell us a bit what you have been doing and what your background is?
Of course. So what happened before Metasouls? So I'm originally from Azerbaijan. I've been living in Istanbul for the past couple of years, and I only moved to Amsterdam like last December. So I'm quite a recent expat. And in terms of my background, I've been in startups for more than 6 years. My main sort of job is usually business development, so it has to do with sales, as you mentioned as well. And in the hindsight, Web3 was kind of always there for me because ever since I was a child, I was a huge nerd and geek, and I used to play a lot of video games and just loved all this boring stuff. So yeah, the metaverse, that is something that I could never imagine as a child, you know, getting to play in your video game, being there. But the actual journey in Web3 started around 2 years ago when I started working in an American startup that was developing an educational metaverse. And because I moved in Amsterdam quite, relatively recently, when I took this course, the same one that Anastasia is talking about, I thought that, well, yeah, this time I really have to network and I really have to find like-minded people here in this country because I didn't really do that back in Turkey during my 2 years. So I'm very grateful for that decision because it led to some very exciting projects.
Really cool. So, first of all, you move from a different country into a whole new world with new connections and new people, but starting a new project together is a whole other thing. Where do you essentially start? And did you already have this vision into what Metasouls have become now, right from the beginning, or what did that process look like?
Well, if I may, I think the initial concept, when we just met, we just realized that, okay, we have a lot of common touch points, and we knew that we want to have, at first, I think it was more around community. But as the project developed, so ever since March, we moved more and more into education. So as of now, Metasouls is a purely ed tech. It's not just an NFT community or something like that, not to diminish them, but our mission is more about onboarding women to Web3, so having this diversity. And we thought that because we met at educational course and because we are both really passionate about education, that is something that we need to build and to make it accessible for everyone. So although the concept kind of developed, the initial mission, I think it was always there.
So to follow up on that, is it really focused on people in the Netherlands, as you both are based in the Netherlands, or has the community become more international? And secondly, where can people enter this community? What's the place to meet others?
I think, as any edtech product, I think it is able to work globally. So we are targeting different countries, not only the Netherlands, of course. And like community, as you say, yeah, it is also the community because we want to build educational product, which will imply also the opportunity for people to connect exactly the way as we met. And as a person coming from Russia, I can see that, for example, educational products in the way of usability that people reach there in my country is not the same here in the Netherlands. In Europe, people don't really not necessarily in Europe in general, I would say for the Netherlands, people don't really get used to this kind of model, this kind of pattern when you have online course and there is also the networking on the side. That's what we want to bring in as a new thing here. But also we're targeting Europe, we're targeting different countries, we're targeting, in the future all over the world. The more the better, to be honest, because there are no limits since it's digital, of course.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful because before, when I went to university, I got forced into particular classes with random people and some subjects I wasn't even interested about. So automatically you are less connected to the people around you. But the way you have met each other is far more natural because you was interested in something, the other one was interested in the same field. So there is already far more common ground. So I can definitely see how that adds value. So really look forward to that. And what I'm interested in, because you have your own company, Anastasia, you are also in sales, Sabina, and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. How do you organize this, speaking of women in tech, and coordinate all of this next to that?
Well, I
That's
can
a very good
start.
question.
Actually, I mean, it's all about priorities, of course. It's difficult. It's honestly difficult. Like for me, at least, and you cannot do everything at the same time. But we try to build our priorities, and we try to focus on one thing at a time. For example, right now it's SheNFT, which is part of Metasouls, and we are going to, I think, talk about it a little bit more, how they are related. But also, of course, as many people in Web3, we have different jobs on the side that, that are also necessary, that are also interesting. And I think the key thing is indeed time management and prioritization. That's the only way.
I would also add team, super important. So as someone who also went through a few startup teams, I think when you have the shared vision of how the work should be done, I think it gets 10 times easier because we can always have each other's back. I cannot say that I always had this, so now, I think now I can see that on the contrast, and I think that also works out really well at Metasouls.
And what are the differences in terms of your roles, if you're speaking about dividing different responsibilities and tasks?
Well, I think for the event, we're trying to do the key things together. So anyway, so all of the strategic stuff, of course, all of the creative choices, they're mainly together. But because of our experience, perhaps a little bit more things that require some tech things. So as for example, developing a website, that's something I'm responsible for. Something about perhaps our marketing and PR, and Anastasia can share more, of course. I think that's on her. But like the strategy we do together.
But also to add on what Sabina just said, we have the team, and we like like every day. I'm so grateful that we are surrounded by such nice people. We have a great team of like 6 people, and they're like responsible for each task, and everybody's doing their own job in our team. So it's also a lot about coordination and orchestration, but it's just the the specifics of any project.
Yes, what I always find interesting also in other episodes when entrepreneurs come, especially on startups or scale-ups, they have this vision and destination which is far ahead into the future, but simultaneously you have to make your team enthusiastic and energetic towards that because you are not still there. Do you recognize that challenge, and what's your approach into selling that vision, making the team motivated to consistently works toward those objectives?
Well, I only have one point, so I think I will be brief. But I think because our team mainly it's all female, and all of these ladies, we all have these shared challenges, and so I think when we pitch our idea and when we try to show them the vision of how it could be, it is extremely interesting for them. Like they would use this product, they would love to be a part of this, and I think massive part lies on that. So I would probably say one of the things is yes, shared challenges.
And I would
Thanks for that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. I just I wanted to add also the positioning because sometimes people like to step in the projects which have unique positioning. And I would say that SheNFT as event right now at the background of everything what's going on the market is quite unique because of several reasons. And one of them is, of course, diversity that right now Sabina already mentioned, that most probably in the Netherlands, we're one of the most diverse Web3 projects which are happening at the moment. The other thing is that, of course, the market is down right now, and there are not so many initiatives around Web3. I mean, there are still, but there is a lot of bias and prejudice against the market and how it develops, and also women. specifically on the market. So and also like SheNFT apparently is one of the biggest NFT exhibitions that ever happened in the Netherlands. It will be with 25 plus artists and 100 plus exhibits, like which never actually happened, at least during the last couple of years here in the country. So like all these factors together gives it a little bit like unique touch, you know, to the positioning of the whole thing, and people want to be part of it just because it's interesting and unique. So this is the other thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I can recognize what you're saying totally. Like in the bear market, I saw a lot less initiatives compared to bull market when every week there was a different event, whether virtual or physical. Now it's a lot different. You also talked about some biases with regards to women, but also how you relate to each other as women with similar challenges. I actually did some homework before this podcast to read about some statistics about women in tech, and I saw some things that didn't necessarily surprise me because I also work in tech and I don't see the majority or like an equal distribution females versus males. But what I read is that like between 28 or 31% in tech is female, so that was interesting to see. But there are also challenges like not having enough role models, mentors, other hurdles. Can you perhaps share some of those challenges that you have observed yourself, which you think are most significant? And then perhaps later on we can look into how to address those for other women that are listening, and perhaps men, to have more sympathy and more better understanding on that.
Anastasia, do you want to start? Because I think you have
Yeah,
external outlook.
yeah. I would like maybe to emphasize something that comes to mind right away. I think, like, apart from the bear market, of course, and all the conditions that we already discussed, the other thing is a little bit like, I think, my personal pain. I'm coming from non-tech background, you know, so I'm a marketeer, as I already mentioned. And like at some point in April, I was like, okay, Web3, this is so interesting. I want to learn more. And I Googled, I want to learn Web3, you know? And after I Googled, I realized that I'm getting 14,000 links, which are saying, oh, the course for developers. Here is a marathon for developers. This is some article for developers. If you're a developer, you can do this and this and this. But I'm not a developer, you know? So for me as a marketeer, I'm always like looking for the insight. And I see like really the lack of structured information for non-developers, for people with no technical background. Specifically, like... yeah, I'm not even talking about women or men here. I'm just in general talking about that, how the information is structured. So I think that's why it is difficult. And like also coming back to the point that there are so many controversial opinions about how Web3 is going to develop, even if it will be there ever, you know, combined all this, it's really difficult to find something worthwhile. And also like about the execution, the content is really complicated. So if you find something, you look at the, let's say, the article, you read it, and after two hours, you just realize, okay, what I just read about. So that's why we found it quite interesting. Like we need to structure the information in a snack content so people will understand it right away. That's why we were thinking about Metasouls, positioning Metasouls as a Netflix and TikTok of Web3 education, you know? So if you enter it, you see like the materials that you right away understand that it's interesting to watch, that it's interesting to dive in with the people who are going to contribute as speakers, as influencers, as mentors, etc. So yeah, I think the challenge, like coming back to my first point, I think the challenge is the lack of structured information.
Okay, I have some questions later on to that, but perhaps you can enrich or add on the point of Anastasia.
Yes, definitely. So all that she said, plus the fact why this is extremely important for women, because of course, not only women want to be, want to join the Web3, but So you know how in the 90s, it was the boom of the dot-com startups, and everyone was also as hesitant as they are now about Web3. It was primarily male dominated because it was men, well, 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, who actually joined and who actually created something in the internet space. And so those decisions actually outlined the next 20, 30 years. And it is very interesting. You can also look for, I think it says something like unnoticeable tech biases, like how technology is also a little bit sexist, but not on purpose, but just because it was made for men and not for women, just because there was not enough women. You can find those little, sneak peeks of those, and it is just really funny to look at it now. And it is even more funny now that we understand that, okay, bear market or no bear market, Web3 is inevitable. I think we all understand that. Yes, the hype will go away, but the main principles, they will continue. And starting something in Web3 now would be the same thing as starting a dot-com startup in the 90s. But only now, we as women, we are aware that this is happening. And we now actually have a chance to join this movement and to have this new wave of technology ruled by diverse crowd. So, and what I mean by diverse, not necessarily gender diversity, everything diversity, of course. I mean, I'm really happy to see 14-year-olds who are, swapping and drawing and doing these NFT projects. I mean, I think that is really cool. And thanks for technology for that, I think. But the main key point to summarize is that we are now going into this new generation of the internet, and we need to enter it as a whole diverse crowd and not just as a bunch of crypto bros. Of course, I know there are also men who support the diversity. I know that, but there are also crypto bros that rule. And crypto bros, by the way, they include women as well. Women who sort of comply and who neglect other women and who don't want other women to join. That's a whole other topic. But I just think that Web3 gives us a lot of chances to be as diverse and as inclusive as we can get, and I think we should really use this chance.
Yeah, thanks for the background. I think a couple of interesting things are mentioned because I recognize a lot of the points that you're saying, and I also feel like it's very new, and it's indeed with regards to articles. When I was reading in the beginning or watching YouTube videos, sometimes like, what did I just 1.5 hour listen to? I really needed to read down and dissect different parts to understand. But on the other hand, like, the technology is built by developers, so I think I feel like there's also a limit to the amount of knowledge that I can understand as a non-developer versus a developer. And what I'm curious to hear more about, what kind of things do you think that is interesting to put into pieces of content like TikTok, those entertaining videos? Because I can imagine, okay, NFTs, these are the earning models, these are the way and the change that you can go into, these are the success stories, the top NFTs. But I already see so much LinkedIn influencers and Insta influence and Twitter influence on that already. So I don't necessarily see how that adds value, because ultimately companies and organizations, perhaps public institutions, need also to be able to benefit from that. So where do you see most opportunities in that field?
Well, if I may, yes, the technology is built by developers, but I think it's enough to, browse through the Product Hunt or any other crowdfunding platforms to see that if you do not have the knowledge and experience to actually promote this product or to understand who needs to use this product, it's just going to be like a piece of code. So I would definitely say that every team should be balanced with, okay, someone in tech, someone in marketing, personal brand, normal personal brand, and not the LinkedIn influencer type of thing that's really popular now. I think it's also extremely important, your personal brand as an entrepreneur, because if you want to raise investment, we all know they invest in people and not in the projects. I would say these. So in terms of team setup, technology, marketing, personal branding, sales, of course, go-to-market strategies, I would say these are, from my point of view, some of the most important points.
I would
Yeah, thanks for that. And of course, there's no. Yeah, go ahead.
no, you go first. What you wanted to say?
Let me think back. What I wanted just to add, like, there is no blueprint or silver bullet, like, okay, this is the right pros. We are just like exploring and brainstorming about different things. But I actually want to ask you a question, Anastasia, because you have marketing background, and Sabina spoke about brand building, and yeah, LinkedIn is of course one of the most notorious professional networks. But Twitter is also increasingly popular. However, there's a lot of bots on there as well, and they have Telegram and Discord. What do you think currently is like, the most suitable channels to build a brand?
The short answer is dependent on the brand and positioning. But before I jump into this in this answer, I would like to follow up a little bit on the previous one, because it really like lays very close to my heart, if I may. So because the technology is indeed built by developers, but one of the most successful and crazy successful project was built by two people who had no idea how NFT is even made, which is Bored Ape. And they created the story, and the story generated the whole market, which is more than $4 billion. I mean, indeed, if there is no story, it would be just a piece of code. And that's why it is so important to have marketeers, storytellers, salespeople in any project which is related to Web3, specifically because we are not buying the code, we are not buying the technology, actually. We are buying the benefit and the value that it gives. And like everybody's in Web3 is talking about value, but it's true, because like when we pay for something with a bank card, we don't think about how this card is transferring money exactly. We just pay because we need to pay for something, and we consider it as easy, and we are considering it as a value, and we don't perceive it as a super deep tech tool or whatever, So this is the story a little bit about Web3, I believe. Maybe this analogy was not 100% direct, but I hope that you get my point. And talking about the best channels for promoting your product is really, as I said, depend on the positioning. Because traditionally in Web3, Twitter is important, right? Twitter as a Telegram or Discord are indeed important, even though Discord right now is losing its popularity mostly because of the usability difficulties sometimes. But it also depends.
Yeah, I get crazy. The last time I was there was, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, like regularly. Recognize that.
Exactly. But for example, I will give you also an example of channel split of SheNFT. Depends on the positioning, we want to onboard new people into Web3, right? Which means that we are going to catch people in their native environment beyond that much technical context, you know what I mean? So that's why we use also Instagram, which other Web3 project would not really consider. But at the same time, SheNFT is still SheNFT, related to Web3. So I would say top channels that I would consider is, of course, like Twitter and also like Instagram for the ones who want to onboard. Discord is still there, of course. Also, podcasts is one of the channels. Something that I wanted to also add. It's not really like the channel, but it's more like a tool. But LinkedIn as well, by the way. That's true. And podcasts, because you see how many people are doing podcasts and they are spreading the word and they are educating people about Web3. And I think last month I was checking the statistics. It is getting really closer to the statistics of social networks and messengers like Telegram, for example. How many people use podcasts? So that's...
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Really interesting.
Yeah, I will check the number and I'll let you know offline. But yeah.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, I also liked your story about Bored Apes. Because what I'm curious about, I think Web3 is such a broad term. You have people who are super interested only in NFTs. Personally, I am less interested in NFTs. I'm more interested in the decentralization part or underlying it, and permissionless, non-censored kind of stuff, digital decentralized identities. There are so many components. And when Bored Apes just started, or CryptoPunks, it was like, oh, this new thing, and everybody wanted to catch the hype and discover where the roof of all of this was. But now everybody has kind of calmed down, and you see also the volume is decreasing. Some people even stop their full-time jobs to go full time into NFTs, and then a couple months later bear market happened and they had to search again for a job because they couldn't trade NFTs anymore. And this ties into a question I had on my paper before this podcast. When I go to crypto events or NFT events, like generally it's kind of different compared to typical technology events. There's a lot of relatively more young people, whereas in typical technology events you see older people from like well-established companies with suits, which is not which is completely irrelevant what you were or whatever, but you see that is more established. And I'm interested in, like, currently as you're organizing SheNFT, what are the focus points? Do you still believe, like, okay, NFTs is currently something that people could make a live in, or there is new use cases that haven't been talked much about? Where do you, what are you most enthusiastic about?
Well, I think I can speak for both of us when I say that we definitely focus more on utility, on additional utility behind NFTs. I personally never ever believed that you can, make a living out of NFTs. Of course you can, but not sustainable. So for me, it was always more interesting on how to use them for good. That could mean anything. That could mean as a key to a community, but that could also mean as projects like Earth Today, for example, who do sustainability, or any others. And I think we explore a lot of that at SheNFT as well. SheNFT is not just about NFT, it's more about all topics Web3, newbie oriented, and for people to understand how they could potentially start getting into Web3 or incorporate some of its parts in their businesses or personal lives. And so I think a couple of topics they really discuss in details what is additional utility behind NFTs except for art. Although I do, always adore beautiful, interesting art pieces, but for me it's more about, okay, it's the same thing kind of as a digital art, but it has some additional utility, of course.
I totally
Well,
agree.
thanks for that. An interesting answer, by the way, that you said you never believed in making a living full-time for NFTs in the first place, because there's a lot of people who probably will disagree with that, but find out late something different. So, yeah, that's interesting to hear. I share that opinion. The floor is yours, Anastasia.
No, I think Sabina actually expressed our mutual opinion on that one. Even though, like, NFTs beyond art, it is something that we right now concentrating on. But at the same time, we organized an NFT exhibition, right? So it sounds a little bit interesting. But that's what exactly we want to that's what exactly we want to explain at SheNFT, because we have speakers, and the speakers are going to talk a lot about why NFT is not a JPEG. Because there is plenty of people, really, they think that this is exactly the case. But we see here and there a lot of beautiful cases. Like, as a marketeer coming from corporate world, I see that big brands are using NFTs as a key for exclusive experiences. Like, big football teams are buying and selling NFTs. Like, even apartment right now, I learned about it last week, that apartment can be bought as NFTs and sold as NFT. So it's just like a little bit expanding. I mean, like, even though market is down, the utility opportunities in the context of NFTs expanding as hell. And this is the topic.
From a sorry to interrupt you there, but otherwise I forget it. From a marketer perspective, do you look at it as just an additional way of interacting with your customer? Because I agree, like if you have an NFT of a soccer club, Barcelona, that you have specific benefits or you have specific discounts on shirts, but if an NFT is like $3,000 that you have on your wallet, it just seems like a very expensive club card compared to other bonus or discount cards that were already existing in the first place.
Well, again, it depends on the context. What kind of brand it is? Is it a luxury brand? Is it a mainstream brand? Is it a let's say exclusive experience? Is it like, for example, I don't know, some brand that gives their consumers the exclusive pass at the backstage for the concert where I don't know, some headliners are giving the performance. It really depends, and actually the price can be different, right? So you can create your own NFT, which can cost whatever. So it's super flexible structure, and I think there is a place for any brand, for any experience, and for any objective, right?
Yeah, and I think what you've just mentioned demonstrates that entirely. Like you already mentioned, like a music show or perhaps Louis Vuitton, those are completely different markets. So yeah, it makes sense that it has different approaches. In terms of the speakers that you just touched upon, what were you looking for in the speakers to bring that knowledge that you want to deliver to the audience? Were there specific variables or hallmarks that you took into account in selecting the speakers?
I think
that's
okay, Sabina,
go for it.
No,
All right, I will be
so
brief.
Sabina was
But I just wanted to say that, well, first of all, I think we also looked from the point of view of the visitors, because we do have experience in Web3, but we can still imagine how it was before we had it. So we definitely looked at people from very different background. We also have a very diverse selection. So although the name is SheNFT, we welcome everyone, and that also translates to the speaker selection. So we have all gender, background, etc. And we didn't really want to only focus on Web3 experts. For example, we have some people who are behind technology, and they are just also exploring Web3 for themselves. So we have a couple of interesting panels between people of Web2 and people of Web3. I think that is super interesting. We also have some people who are representing the creators, the artists front, the business front, the technology. So we also tried to cover every little possible thing that Web3 consists of.
Really exciting. So it's gonna be a multi-dimensional event for sure, with all those different backgrounds and disciplines. Did you want to add something, because you kind of got at the same moment?
No,
Anastasia?
no. I think exactly. Sabina was mentioning exactly what I wanted to say as well. So we want to onboard people. That's why we want to tell about the key aspects in Web3. It's important. And what I mentioned a lot of times in a lot of conversations always, if you go to Web3 events, you notice that there are a lot of different panels, and a lot of panels are often empty. So people are saying, hello, my name is blah, 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 and then my name is blah, 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 and then they answer one question and then a couple of other questions, and they just go from the subject away, to different subject. And then after this panel, again, I'm having the same concern, that what was actually about. So to avoid that, we wanted to minimize the number of panels, because panels are more difficult to manage than, for example, talks. And we want to make a lot of talks, like sharp talks, 15-20 minutes talks, like TED Talks type of thing, where people can showcase exactly what they're talking about and explain really clearly what is the subject. So that's the only specifics.
Well, it's super funny that you're mentioning that. Perhaps you've read my LinkedIn profile before this podcast, but I put a post out 3 months ago after a Metaverse event, MetAms, that I was negatively surprised by panels because
I was
people.
there. Yeah.
Yes. Ah, yeah. So you experience exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I experienced
Can we
like
say that at the
no, can
podcast?
we say that in the podcast or not? Maybe you can cut it out.
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah, I'm not gonna edit this out. It's not to bash Matters. Was a phenomenal event, and I also point out how great it was. But in terms of learnings and my personal experience for the event, I noticed when someone was giving just like kind of a TED Talk format that was far more educational for me personally and interesting to listen to compared to panels where people are kind of freestyling in the moment what they are going to say, because everyone can freely say something on the fly, and I didn't find that very insightful compared to the talk. So yeah, I recognize that completely, so really looking forward to experience that at SheNFT. And actually, I saw, Sabina, that you recently did kind of a TEDx talk. So perhaps can you share some takeaways or tips for speakers that are listening here, that are going to speak at SheNFT or any other events? How your experience was like, and what your takeaways were from that experience? Because not a lot of people get to speak at such a stage.
I do have to mention for legal purposes that that was not a TED Talk, but it was a talk at the TEDx Talent Night event. So that is a little bit of a different.
Ah, okay, good correction. Okay.
Yeah, because I have to correct that. But that was, of course, it still gave me the same impression because it was extremely organized. Although I do have some public speaking experience, it's mainly startup related, so startup pitching and all of that stuff. And I've never been, in such a constraint about everything, which is a good thing, of course, that I went through it because it was just another level of professional experience. But after that, I can also share, I think, that we had a test run and I failed miserably at the test run when I completely forgot the lines that I was about to say, and I tried to, find my way through it. And something that really helped me do that was realizing that I'm not giving a written speech and nobody is really interested in hearing how beautifully I will say one thing or another. People are interested to understand your thought that you're trying to share in a simple, concise way. So I think we move away from long, structured speeches to something super simple and super to the point. I think we can also thank Gen Z for that. With their attention span, I think we really have to work on how to get it going. So I think that would be the number one tip, to just speak from your heart, because nobody will really remember if you said or oh a couple of times throughout the speech, but everyone will remember what idea you had to share. So I think that speaking directly to the audience, and also something to also comment on to the previous point, understand that you're speaking to the newbie audience, because a lot of these events that we've been to, they are very much oriented to people who are already in Web3, and we kind of see the same faces at every event, and it is nice to catch up with them. But the goal is to welcome more people in Web3, right? If we want it to work, then we need to be more welcoming to the newbie people.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So, how does that translate for your preparation in terms of the speech? Because you said it's not like a written speech, but did you just have some bullet points or some keywords compared to your earlier preparation? Then, given the attention span of, how did that influence that?
For TEDx Talent Night, I definitely had a written speech, so we had to have that. So I was trying to sort of remember it, but usually I would always just have bullet points and multiple examples. For example, both me and Anastasia, we will be speaking at NFT London next week. And so we are actually participating at a panel. And so the preparation that we're doing, it's not about writing a speech, the exact answers to every question. It's more about having a general understanding of the topic and pulling out all the possible examples to support your point. So I think that is the better way, especially if we're talking about tech and Web3 audience, where you need to be simple. Like you cannot speak too, too beautifully and too too difficult.
That's actually funny and ironic to hear that you're gonna participate in a panel, given what we just talked about. But I think it's great because we are not here to bash panels on itself. It's just like how the panels are. How the panels are happening, and you already said you're just gonna map out different scenarios that you're going to talk about, so the value will still be as high as possible instead of just free formatting and free flowing all over the place. Also being aware of time, perhaps nearing the end. If you fast forward, both of you, your careers and your objectives, 5 year. Where do you see yourself standing in terms of professionally, but also with Metasouls and SheNFT? And doesn't necessarily have to be 5 years, because no one knows if this world still exists in 5 years or whatever happens. But you can just take a time frame that you think is you can look into. This is
Anastasia,
happening when you
think
are
you
online podcasting. No one knows when to talk.
I was on mute. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
I just wanted to propose Sabina to go ahead. No?
Oh, well, it is very hard to predict what's going to happen given everything in the world, not even talking about Web3 world. But if we imagine that everything goes well, I think I can say one thing about Metasouls. Definitely, we want to onboard at least, 5 years. 10K women to Web3. Rough number, but let it be. I think that would be for Metasouls, definitely. And Anastasia can build upon that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, if when people ask me this question, and recently I get this question a lot, I tell the story of like the last year and a half when I quit my company. There was pandemic. Then my business partner decided to leave my company. Then in my country there was a war, and still, happening, and different things. And I don't even know exactly what's going to happen indeed, like in a couple of months. So it's really difficult to plan. It's you have no, like, for example, if you ask me 3 years ago where you would be, I would never say that I would do what I'm doing right now. Because great ideas sometimes are coming like really out of nowhere, and you almost have an opinion that somebody tells you what to do. Sounds really creepy, but yeah, that's what I experienced. I think that this objective, like even marketing wise, I think what Sabina right now mentioned is exactly what we want. We want to onboard as many women as possible, and we are going to build and scale up. We are going to as a proper startup to enter an accelerator. We are going to raise funds. We are going to do all these things that all the startups are doing. But we also are going to spread the word around it. I'm particularly going to work on PR and publicity and marketing of this project, because right now you can see everywhere all these women-related initiatives, but they're quite small, like even Europe and more in US. And we would really aim to be not necessarily maybe the biggest in Europe, but one of the biggest in Europe, let's say. Let's put it like this, in terms of the planning. But yeah, as a entrepreneur, I would maybe have other projects in 5 years, not only Metasouls. But let's see how it goes.
I think this is such powerful closing match, because it's one of the most underlooked notions nowadays to not plan too far ahead, because from when we were kids, like in school, we were always conditioned to go from primary school to high school to university, then find a job, like this chronological ladder. But in this turbulent times that we're living now, there are so much unexpected things happening, and you are perfect. You just gave perfect example of that. But there's no way that similar things could happen to me or to someone else. So I think the lesson in that is, just to stay adaptive. And I'm not saying like don't plan nothing, because then certainly nothing happens. But also, remain aware that not everything will unfold as you might think it will go, and also because of external factors. So I think really interesting conversation, touched upon planning, on event management, on Web3, women in tech. So I really enjoyed it. I hope the listeners did as well. And hopefully we can run other podcasts after the event, just to see how things went after that.
Great idea.
That would be amazing. And I think we haven't really highlighted the fact that we will see each other at SheNFT, as you will be also sharing the metaverse knowledge with our visitors.
Yeah, that's true. So I've made some notes on your tips and suggestions how to give a good speech, so then you can assess how that went and if I incorporated the feedback correctly.
I think you don't need my tips.
So,
I think we're good.
Well, we gonna see we gonna see afterwards. But thanks. I'm now going to end the recording. So just gonna ask you to stay a little bit more, because it needs to upload.
Yeah.
Which is the exciting part, but it will be fine. 1 sec.